am Samantha Papa. I am a communication student here at CMU. I'm also involved in the honors program, and I want to share with you some research that I've done. Oh, but I should probably pull up my PowerPoint. Okay, now we're ready. Okay. So, when entering the honors program at Central Michigan University, you are told as a freshman that you will eventually complete a senior research project, which can seem very daunting at the beginning. And when I was a junior and I was really approaching this project, I wanted to analyze what my actual passions were. I knew that I had a passion for communication theory. I knew that I had a passion for health because I'm also a pre-nursing student. I'm fulfilling all of the pre-nursing requirements and will be attending Michigan State University to earn a second bachelor's degree. I also wanted to be able to conduct research that I knew was going to be applicable to the students at CMU. I wanted to be able to give back to the school that has given so much to me. So my first step was, okay, what theory? What theory really drives me? What's something that I want to learn more about and I'm really passionate about? And a theory that I've always really respected is Everett Rogers' innovation diffusion model. And I want to walk you through that. First, what is important is to look at that there are two different aspects to it. The innovation development process is from the researcher's point of view. What you need to do first is recognize that there is a certain problem that needs to be addressed. From there, you can do basic research to confirm that that problem actually exists. Then, applied research really takes what you've learned and hones it into a specific category, whether that's an audience or a population or a setting. Then, an innovation can be developed in order to be diffused throughout a society. It can be commercialized throughout that society. Then it can diffuse and be adopted, and consequences can be analyzed. Now, from the population's standpoint, the innovation development process takes place. First, the population needs to become knowledgeable. Are they aware that the problem actually exists? Do they feel that they're actually susceptible to this problem? From there, they can be persuaded to either accept or reject an innovation that is being presented to them to address the issue. They then decide, okay, this looks like something that I can really handle. Maybe I can actually implement this. They implement the innovation, and then after repeated use, it ends up being confirmed. So, I wanted to specifically look at how many of you have heard of the freshman 15? Okay? It's something that we've heard about. Does it actually exist? Is it real? I don't know. It was something that fascinated me. And so that's what I really wanted to look at. And I wanted to share with you, 21.8 million students attended American universities in 2013. Okay? 6.5 million more students are attending universities now than they were in the year 2000. And a recent survey asked students, what are the top 10 issues that you're dealing with while you're transitioning to college? Students shared that they had new personal responsibility, class attendance was huge, instructor attitudes, the types of assignments that they were actually having to handle, the importance in their performance, time management strategies, the amount of time that they needed to spend studying, the size of their classes, the difficulty of their coursework, and finally their social life. Now, looking at these 10 issues, there are definitely consequences that end up happening from having to address all of these issues at once. And students ended up sharing that they had to deal with sleep deprivation, stress, lack of a structured schedule, and inconsistent exercising. These consequences often lead to weight gain, which is termed the freshman 15. According to Kluski and Grove, health behaviors that are established while students are in college most of the time end up transferring throughout their entire adult lifespan. The underlying issue here is obesity. Also, obesity rates have been increasing, and they've been increasing steadily amongst people between the ages of 18 and 29. This population fits into students who are attending colleges and universities. Rates have actually grown from 7.1% to 12.1% just since 2007. College students are fitting into this category, and the reasons that I found from my research is student integration to campus and stress, which ends up leading to unhealthy habit adoption. Concerning integration to campus, one study surveying students found that they knew that their exercise habits were declining, but they felt that poor nutrition was actually the greatest contributor towards weight gain. Campus life doesn't offer helpful options for students, and a lot of students were sharing that as well. And students discovered once they moved off campus, it can be very expensive to try and lead a healthy lifestyle, whether that's becoming members of different gyms or trying to eat healthy and eat fresh produce. They found that it was ending up costing them more than it was to choose unhealthy options. Now, concerning stress, according to Herring, Montgomery, and Hardin, stress often leads to students partaking in less exercise, making poor nutrition choices, and increasing their drug usage. Stress causes greater food intake as well, especially foods that are higher in saturated fat and sodium. Lastly, stress from erratic schedules often leads to mindless munching. Students very often end up finding themselves snacking throughout the day instead of actually having designated meal times. And this very often leads to a greater caloric intake than they initially anticipated. So all of this ends up leading to different habits that students end up developing while attending college. Their diets are very often high in fat, sugar, and sodium. And diets are also low in fruit, vegetables, and low-fat dairy products. A lot of the time this leads to unhealthy weight management strategies. Students find themselves looking at fasting or diet pills, laxatives, induced vomiting, because they aren't able to manage their weight on their own. So what efforts have currently been made? Now, looking at the innovation diffusion model, I addressed that I wanted to look at the freshman 15, but I needed to do some basic research before diving deeper into this issue. And the studies that I ended up looking at mostly looked at the first semester or the first year of college. And they spent an extensive amount of time saying, look, 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 students are gaining weight, students are gaining weight. And that was it. No efforts were made. No, we tried to put forth this different innovation, or we tried this model, or we tried to, have different subjects doing different things. It was just to prove that the problem actually exists. And so this is why I wanted to study it. And actually, Central Michigan University currently does not have any prevention programs, which I found to be extremely unethical. And that is why I wanted to see if I could find a way to find an innovation to address this issue specifically on this campus. Oops. So this leads to my project. The basic research confirmed the problem. I knew that students were gaining weight while they were coming to college. I knew that this age category is at a much higher risk. But what innovation can actually address this issue? You can't try to create an innovation without talking to your audience first. I needed to conduct applied research, and I decided to do focus groups on campus. I conducted 4 focus groups last semester. I had 4 to 7 participants in each focus group. I had a total of 21 students. 5 of them were male, and 16 of them ended up being female. I wanted to focus on sophomores because they were transitioned, but freshman year wasn't that far from their minds. They still could really reflect on it. And most of my students end up being sophomores. I think I had I had 8 juniors and 13 sophomores. I did use convenient sampling. Emails were sent out to students asking them if they would partake in a study about transitioning to college, but they didn't know that we were going to be talking about health issues specifically. I wanted them to come in with an open mind. I didn't want them to think that I would be judging them or anything like that, so I just said that it was about transitioning. And there was no incentive. So what did I end up discovering? I ended up discovering that every single student that I talked to knew somebody who had gained weight in college. They were all aware of the freshman 15, whether it had been them or it had been somebody else. They knew and they observed that this was an issue on this campus. When it came to their habits, this is what was really fascinating to learn about. Focus group 2 really talked about feeling pressure to eat more because of their schedule. So they would find themselves at meal times consuming more than they needed to because they didn't know when they were going to eat next. Focus group 3 talked about how they initially intended to eat well when they were transitioning to CMU, but different factors made them change their minds as they continued to transition to this campus. So some of those were exposure to dessert, influence from their peers, and lack of conscious awareness. They just stopped paying attention to what they were eating and just started listening to whatever their stomachs wanted. Other changes that students mentioned included late night eating and convenience stores overcharging healthful options and spending more of their time pushing the unhealthy options and making those a little bit less expensive for students. Now, looking at exercise habits, 16 of my 21 participants played sports in high school, which meant that they were pretty much exercising 6 to 7 days a week consistently. But only 5 of them had ever really regularly attended a gym before coming to CMU. A lot of them were very overwhelmed with the idea of working out in a gym. They didn't know how to work out on their own. They felt uncomfortable going by themselves. And even though there was an inconsistent result with how much students exercised when transitioning to CMU, what was consistent is that they were completely influenced by their peers. If they had roommates that were really into working out, they would end up transitioning into that habit. If they had roommates or friends that didn't work out as much, they didn't find themselves partaking in it as much. Now, looking at CMU's current efforts, I asked my students, what do you think CMU is currently doing to address this issue? Many of them were a little angry because they felt that CMU wasn't really doing anything. But when I asked them to dig deeper, they could brainstorm some ways that CMU was addressing this problem. Right now, in the residential restaurants on campus, there are iPads that are located in the beginning. If you want to check nutrition information before choosing what you want to eat, you have that option. You could also check on a website via CMU before you end up going to the residential restaurant to look at the different caloric or fat intake or sodium intake, whatever it is that you want to look at. Also, for students who are living on campus, there are free exercise classes that are offered, but those classes are not offered once you move off campus. And we do have numerous workout facilities at CMU as well. Now, what I really loved is that I had 4 focus groups. Nobody knew each other from the different focus groups. They weren't in contact with each other. They were held at completely different days. But yet they all came to the same conclusions as to different ideas that they had in addressing this issue, which I thought was just fantastic. 16 of my 21 participants, did Leadership Safari. And they felt that Leadership Safari needs to have a greater emphasis on adopting healthy habits while transitioning to CMU. And for anybody who isn't aware, Leadership Safari is an extensive weekend-long freshman orientation before classes start. So students are able to move on campus early, they're able to attend different seminars, workshops, group discussions in order to integrate into campus. Another idea that students really focused on was peer influence. They talked about how their eating and exercise habits were so influenced by their peers that that would be a way to really address this issue. Focus group 4 really got excited about student athletes and the fact that student athletes a lot of the time seem separate from the rest of the student body, and they wanted to find a way to maybe create an event or a competition in which student athletes worked out and encouraged students to work out with them and help them learn how to integrate exercise into their lives. The final idea that each of the focus groups came up with was looking towards our registered student organizations. Maybe there can be an RSO on this campus that can address this issue in some way. The Dieticians Club was one that we really focused on, because students, when they're moving off campus, find that, well, I'll lead into that. So, looking at the surprises of what I ended up handling, I realized towards the end of my project that students don't know how to cook. That's what it comes down to. They weren't finding that their issues were focused completely on living in the dorms. They felt that it was harder to continue healthy habits when moving off campus. And so I have a few quotes from students that I just thought were really compelling. One student shared, "All I do is put things in the microwave." She was absolutely terrified to do anything else. So anything that required anything further than a microwave, she just couldn't handle. Another student shared, "Now that I'm in an apartment, I can grocery shop. I get so overwhelmed with cooking dinners and fresh food goes bad so quickly that I just resort to ramen noodles and pasta." So this student lives off of ramen noodles and pasta just because of the fear of trying something new. And lastly, another student shared, "Off campus I have to cook, but I don't like grocery shopping. I see things that look healthy, but I just have a lot of pasta, butter, and cheese." So I asked them, where are these problems coming from? And they said, well, we need to make meals quick, we need them to be cheap, and we need them to be yummy and efficient. And so I approached the Dieticians Club, and that's actually where this project is now. The Dieticians Club is currently coming up with a massive campaign to bring on this campus in order to teach students how to make quick, healthy, affordable meals. And that's the innovation that we're going to see if it ends up getting carried further and seeing if it ends up having an impact on this campus, which I really, really hope that it does. So, concluding, overall, I hope that my project is the start to something larger on this campus that will end up addressing the freshman 15. As Potter Stewart once said, ethics is knowing the difference between what you have the right to do and